Welcome to Fantasy Garden. Relax and make yourself at home. The night always arrives first in simple places. In that wooden house, far from the city, the wind slipped through the cracks as if searching for memories of what was once a home filled with laughter and wealth. The old merchant, now stripped of fortune, counted his coins as though measuring his own breath. The older daughter sighed before the slow-boiling pot. The sons, weary, kept silent, and the youngest, Belle, set the table with a calm far too great for such a small house. Outside, the fields breathed cold air, and the road, drawn as a pale line of dust, seemed to invite someone either to leave or to lose themselves. In that quiet, something waited. Not a sound, not a shadow, just the feeling that soon one small choice would change everything. If this atmosphere touched you, leave a like, share what you felt in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive for those who need to hear them. Here, every detail matters. The crackle of the firewood, Belle's gaze when no one is looking, the way her father hides his worry so no one will be afraid. When you support, you help keep the light in this window burning, so others may find their way to this table, and perhaps feel the same gentle warmth that now surrounds this family in their time of trial. Days in the countryside have a rhythm that asks no one's permission. Dawn comes early, with the earth demanding hands and patience, and the merchant's former riches are no use for planting potatoes. The older daughters never grew used to the silence of the wood stove, and the sons, though they tried, couldn't hide their discomfort with worn clothes and blistered palms. Belle, however, found a certain brightness in the dust when she opened the shutters. She swept the floor as if drawing a future, and spoke softly with her father as if words could stitch together what had been torn. Sometimes, at dusk, they gathered to hear the old man tell stories of ships, and for a fleeting moment, the room felt larger. It was on one of those afternoons, when the sun tilted low and the shadows stretched across the yard, that news arrived. One of the ships might have returned. Hope entered the door before the messenger finished his sentence. The older daughters spoke again of fine fabrics. The brothers laughed in clumsy relief, and the father felt the weight in his chest grow lighter. The next morning he departed. Before tightening the saddle, he asked, almost like in the old days, what gifts they desired. The older girls asked for the shine they had lost. Belle took longer to answer. She looked at the garden, noticed a dry branch by the fence, and asked only for a rose. A rose, as if a symbol could fit within the palm of a hand. The city received him with noise and haste, but fate is frugal when it means to teach. The returned ship had brought debts, not gold. Promises from the sea can turn to foam in a breath. On the way back, the father chose an old shortcut through the forest, still hoping he could at least fulfill his daughter's wish. But the forest is never the same for those who enter worried. Trunks seem to draw closer, the fog grows heavy, footsteps echo as if followed by unseen company. The sky closed into a borderless gray, and a fine rain redrew the path in silence. That was when he saw a light. The light came from an impossible place in that wilderness. A gate carved with figures time should have erased. A corridor of trimmed hedges shaped with precision unknown to the countryside. A manor resting in the heart of nowhere. When he pushed the gate, it yielded without a creak. Inside, the table was already set, the fire already burning, and the warmth had the exact feel of a planned embrace. No footsteps echoed in the hall, yet everything seemed to wait. The hungry traveler tasted the bread, drank the tea, dried his clothes, felt life slowly return, and still, the strangeness did not leave him. who serves a feast without showing their face. The garden defied the season. Among branches that should have slept, some rose bushes challenged the calendar with open petals, heavy with dew, as if they had bloomed that very dawn to fulfill a purpose. The father approached slowly, remembering Belle's simple request, the dry branch by the fence, the smile she saved for small things. He reached out, hesitated, touched the stem carefully, and in that exact instant before the cut, something greater than the night seemed to awaken. Some stories do not begin with a scream, but with the delicate sound of a rose being picked, and that is where ours takes a deep breath. The cut was gentle, almost silent, but the night felt it. The father lifted the rose carefully, as one who retrieves a wish from the heart of the earth, and for a brief moment, he believed all was well. A simple gift for a daughter who never asked for much. Yet the wind shifted in a strange way, as though the entire garden held its breath. Then the darkness seemed to take form, and a voice, deep, ancient, and resonant, broke through the air without the need for footsteps. "You steal what is mine." There was no figure at first, only the certainty that something nearby was watching, judging with eyes far beyond human measure. The beast appeared once fear itself had taken shape. It was not only its size or strength, but the sum of everything nature had refused to combine. Claws where tenderness should be, fangs where words ought to rest, and a shadow so heavy it made the fire shrink within the hearth. The father stammered, trying to explain that he meant no harm, that he only wished to honor his daughter's request. One rose, just one. For sometimes love chooses the smallest symbols. The beast listened as though weighing not words, but intentions. And when it finally spoke again, the sound scraped through the silence with a sentence no one wishes to hear at the edge of hope. "A life must be paid for what is taken from the heart of my home." There are moments when courage exists only because there is no other choice. The old merchant, who had already lost ships, coins, and favor, discovered then that he still had one thing to offer: the truth. He said he was no thief, that he had not entered to plunder, that the set table had saved him from the cold and he owed a debt of gratitude. He spoke of the daughter who asks for little, the others who ask for everything, the sons who struggle not to fail. As he spoke, he pressed the rose to his chest, and it sent rose like a memory of bright days. The beast stood motionless, absorbing his words. At last, it relented just a fraction. He could return home to say goodbye, on the promise that he would come back. A promise, in that house, was worth more than gold forgotten in a ship's hold. The journey back through the forest felt different, for those who carry a deadline do not see the same path. The father guided the horse beneath heavy branches, shielding the rose from the fine drizzle, and each hoofbeat echoed like an unseen clock counting down. When the house appeared, small and steady at the edge of the field, he felt a fleeting relief, the kind that lasts only from the door to the table. He told them everything without adornment. The light in the wilderness, the table already set, the garden out of season, the accusation, the sentence, the chance to say farewell. The older daughters exchanged glances where curiosity and calculation walked hand in hand. The sons clenched their fists, unsure at whom, and Belle listened with her eyes, her silence, a decision being born. Not every choice announces its name. Sometimes it simply sits before us, waiting for the mouth to speak what the heart already knows. Belle lifted the rose, breathed in its fragrance as if reading an omen, thought of her father shivering in strange halls, thought of the ever-set table that had never seen its host, thought that gratitude often takes the shape of return. She said, with the calm of one who tidies the house before dawn, that she would go in his place. There was no heroism in her tone, only the kind of logic kindness understands. The one who asked for the rose must pay its price, and perhaps, just perhaps, the beast would be less cruel to someone who dared to look it in the eyes. The father refused twice, as love demands. On the third, he understood. The next morning, the countryside seemed to hold its breath. The sisters adjusted their skirts and their masks. One wept tears so carefully shed they glittered like jewels. The other praised Belle's courage with words sharpened on the inside. The brothers promised to find help, promised roads, promised solutions that time itself could not contain. The father prepared the horse with a craftsman's care, tightened the blanket, fastened the straps as though tying fate itself so it wouldn't fall along the way. Belle dressed in her usual simplicity and, before mounting, ran her fingers along the dry branch by the fence. The gesture was small, but within it lived a farewell to who she had been, and a beginning the road ahead seemed ready to recognize. The forest seemed to breathe in rhythm with the horse's steps. Each tree, each bend of the path, held a different kind of silence, as if time there were woven from echoes. Belle kept her eyes alert, though fear found no room. It was replaced by an ancient curiosity, the kind that stirs when the heart feels it is moving towards something destiny prepared long ago. Her father, riding beside her, tried to hide his unease, watching the daughter who now seemed more mature than the man who had once taught her to walk. When the gate appeared again, wrapped in a pale, motionless mist, he stopped. The beast would keep his word, and Belle knew she must keep hers as well. The gate opened on its own, and a shiver traced the old merchant's spine. Inside, the castle seemed alive, almost breathing. The windows glowed softly, fountains murmured distant melodies, and the corridors echoed with invisible footsteps, as if unseen eyes followed them from afar. Belle dismounted and held the rose tightly. That gesture, simple, almost childlike, steadied her. Her father wanted to insist on entering, but the voice came again, closer now, deeper, like a storm restrained. She stays. You go. Obedience was the price. With his heart divided, the man knelt, blessed his daughter with a kiss on the forehead, and departed, carrying with him the weight of a promise both broken and kept. As soon as the gate closed, the atmosphere shifted. Belle looked around and sensed that the castle was not built merely of stone, but of memory. Everything seemed to tell stories no one else could hear. A table was laid by invisible hands, filled with fruit and crystal goblets that filled themselves. The fire in the hearth danced in shades of copper, and a gentle melody, coming from nowhere, filled the room with a tenderness that did not match the figure lurking in the shadows. Then she heard its slow, heavy footsteps drawing near. The beast emerged from the gloom, his gaze deep and weary, his face molded by pain and by something that felt like longing. For a while, neither spoke, only the crackle of the fire, the weight of their breathing, and the unspoken question between them. What made a fragile young woman stand before fear without bowing to it? At last, the beast spoke. "Do you fear me?" Belle took a breath and answered softly, "I did. Now I'm not sure." He stepped back, as if those words had the power to open old wounds. Yet he thanked her for her courage and, with a slow gesture, invited her to dine. The meal passed in silence, but within that silence something new was born, a dialogue between fear and compassion. In the days that followed, Belle explored the castle's endless halls. She learned that the flowers never wilted, that the mirrors reflected not only faces but thoughts, and that at night, unseen voices wished her peaceful dreams. The beast appeared at dusk, always distant, always attentive, as though each word he spoke might somehow wound her. Over time, Belle began to notice the hidden kindness beneath his monstrous form. A book left open on her favorite page, the garden rearranged in quiet care, the scent of roses lingering even in the cold corridors. The beast, she realized, had learned to be a monster without ever forgetting what it meant to be a man. And one of those afternoons, when sunlight poured through the windows in long golden lines, Belle caught something in his eyes, an ancient solitude, so deep it seemed to belong to another lifetime. There was no threat there, only a silent plea for company. She sat by the fire and asked softly, "How long have you lived here?" The beast looked away, unable to answer, as though he feared remembering. But his silence was enough. Belle understood then that the castle was not his prison. It was his mirror. And within that mirror, she began to see something she hadn't known she was searching for. The following hours dissolved into a haze of calm and wonder. Belle wandered through the castle's halls as one who walks inside a dream from which she has not yet decided to awaken. Tapestries moved slightly, even without wind, depicting banquets, kings, and queens who seemed to watch her steps. The echo of her shoes was the only human sound in that place, and yet she did not feel entirely alone. Gentle, bodiless voices whispered instructions. "This way, my lady, mind the step. Dinner is served." That invisible hospitality was at once comforting and mysterious. When the beast appeared again, it was as if the air itself grew heavier. The floor felt firmer, the fire quieter. He carried a presence that no glance could fully contain, a sadness wrapped in strength. Belle tried to speak, but her voice faltered. It was the beast who broke the silence, asking whether she found him hideous. Belle hesitated, then answered with disarming honesty, "Frightening, but not as much as I imagined." The answer, simple and without cruelty, seemed to pierce the fortress within him. He lowered his eyes and murmured words she barely caught. "That's more than I ever hoped for." As days passed, Belle discovered that the castle followed its own rhythm. Dawn arrived slowly, and the nights lasted precisely as long as the questions she did not ask. The beast appeared always at dusk, bringing fragments of stories, unexpected questions, and a loneliness poorly concealed. Sometimes he watched her read. Other times, he simply accompanied her in the garden, where the flowers seemed to bloom more brightly when she was near. Belle, who once trembled at his growls, began to recognize in them the sound of a soul long imprisoned. Every conversation became a key, slowly unlocking the forgotten doors of his humanity. One evening, during dinner, the air filled with a subtle tension. The beast, in a voice lower than usual, asked, "Do you hate me?" Belle set her fork down, thought for a moment, and replied, "No, I just don't yet understand what keeps you here." His gaze hardened briefly, then softened again, like a man seeing his reflection without a mask for the first time. "The same thing that keeps you," he said. "A promise." The words hung between them, and the fire crackled like a heart struggling to keep pace. After that night, something shifted. The beast's presence ceased to feel heavy and became part of the landscape itself. Belle began to wander the corridors without fear, to read aloud so he could listen from afar, to laugh at small things once unworthy of joy. The castle, in turn, seemed to awaken. Fountains ran clearer, stained glass cast brighter colors upon the walls. The beast watched her from a distance, silently admiring her, afraid to frighten away so rare a presence. Yet within him, something had begun to yield, the habit of pain. And in that fragile space between fear and tenderness, a new bond began to form, not of words, but of presence. For the first time in years, the beast began to dream. And for the first time in a long while, Belle began to feel that there was something beyond appearances, something that could only be understood with the heart. She did not know it yet, but the entire castle listened to her footsteps as though hearing a prayer being answered. The pact of silence that had bound that place was, at last, beginning to break. The days passed as though time within the castle followed its own rhythm. Slower, heavier, almost fluid. Belle awoke each morning to the distant song of unseen birds and the ever-present scent of roses that seemed to bloom only for her. With each meal, the beast drew a little nearer, as if the fear that had once stood between them was dissolving, softened by the quiet persistence of routine and simple gestures. Sometimes she caught him watching her movements with a curiosity almost human, the way she held her teacup, or how she lost herself in the stories she read. In those brief moments, the creature's rigidity melted away, revealing something fragile beneath the surface. Belle learned to sense his presence before seeing him. The faint tremor in the floor, the warmth thickening in the air, the restrained sound of a breath trying not to be heard. Gradually, she began to speak more, not to fill the silence, but because she felt that he listened with a depth no one else ever had. She told him about her father, about the quiet life in the countryside, about her sisters who complained endlessly and her brothers who pretended at bravery. The beast listened, asking questions so gentle they seemed to come from someone trying to understand the world, not to rule it. In those moments, Belle forgot completely that she was speaking to something not quite human. One rainy afternoon, she found him in the garden, seated and staring at the gray sky. Water slid down his thick fur, yet he did not move. Belle approached cautiously and asked what troubled him. "Time," he said, without looking away. "It doesn't pass the same for me." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning she could not yet grasp. Then, with a quiet gesture, Belle reached out, caught a raindrop from a rose petal, and let it fall onto the back of his hand. Then, for a moment, she said, "Time is the same for both of us." He looked at her in a way no beast had ever looked at its prey. From that day on, the sadness that had shrouded the castle began to soften into something gentler, a tender melancholy. The beast showed Belle places once forbidden. The endless library, the hall of mirrors, the underground lake that reflected the sky even at night. She, in turn, taught him to laugh at small things, the stumble of enchanted dishes, his startled reaction to his own reflection, the curious way birds avoided him. The castle seemed to share in their joy, opening windows, brightening corridors. And, without realizing it, Belle began to listen for his footsteps with a smile. Yet where affection takes root, fear also seeks refuge. At night, alone in her room, Belle thought of her father, whether he was well, whether he missed her. Her heart split between duty and longing, and at times, the ache of distance hurt more than the memory of fear ever had. The beast, though silent, noticed. Once he asked, "If I gave you freedom, would you return?" Belle hesitated, then answered with the honesty that had already disarmed him, "I would return, but I promise I would come back here too." Without realizing it, she sealed both their fates with those words. The castle, silent witness to their growing bond, seemed to breathe in a different rhythm, flowers bloomed faster, the halls smelled of spring, and even the wind carried warmth. There was music in the air, not made of instruments, but of presence. And in the heart of the beast, something began to awaken again. Hope. He knew he was nearing the impossible, but each of Belle's gestures reminded him that even the oldest curses weaken in the presence of a love that asks for nothing in return. That night, the castle slept under a silence almost sacred. Belle walked through the corridors holding a candle, watching the trembling flame reflect against the gilded walls. The beast had not appeared for dinner, a rare occurrence, and something within her began to stir with unease. Following instinct, she descended to the grand hall and found him there, motionless before a vast mirror framed in antique gold. He stared at his reflection with the expression of one who tries to recognize himself and cannot. When he sensed her presence, he turned away, ashamed, almost human. "Why do you look at me that way?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Belle stepped closer and replied softly, "Because I see someone trying to be better than he believes he is." The answer wounded and healed him at once. The beast drew a deep breath, and the mirror before them seemed to tremble, revealing for a fleeting moment a different image. Not the monstrous body, but a young man, trapped beneath that form. The vision vanished quickly, and Belle stepped back, startled. "The castle shows what it chooses," he said quietly. Then, gathering what calm he could, he told her that he had long been cursed to live among shadows until someone loved him without fearing his appearance. But over time, he had stopped believing such a thing was possible. "Love fears what it cannot understand," he said. And Belle, looking at him, thought that perhaps it was the opposite, that love begins when we no longer need to understand. From that night onward, she saw the beast differently. Fear vanished completely, replaced by a silent respect, a tenderness that grew like dawn. She no longer saw only the creature before her, but the soul imprisoned within, striving with every gesture to prove that goodness can bloom in any form. She began reading to him each day, and at times, while her voice carried the stories, she saw tears glisten in his eyes, quiet, fleeting tears, like those of someone who has wept too long. Belle said nothing, only kept reading, knowing that some pains are healed only by the sound of a voice that stays. The following days brought a kind of peace that cannot be planned. Belle rose early, gathered flowers in the garden, spoke with the gentle unseen servants, and waited for dusk, when she would see him again. The beast, in turn, seemed to wrestle against time, as if something within him knew that the enchantment would not last forever. Yet while fate waited, they lived as if they had all the time in the world. The beast offered her gifts, books, necklaces, enchanted mirrors, but Belle accepted only what cannot be held, their conversations. In those moments, she learned to listen to his silences as if they were prayers. One afternoon, he showed her the garden of blue roses, flowers found nowhere else, born of ancient magic. Each one, he explained, blooms from a wish that was never granted. Belle smiled and asked what would happen if someone touched one. "It depends on who touches it," he said. "Some see beauty, others what they've lost." Belle reached out, hesitated, then touched a petal. For an instant, the rose glowed with a soft light, and she heard a distant sound, the laughter of a child. The beast stared in wonder. "Did you hear it too?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "I think the garden remembered something happy, but even love cannot delay destiny's call for long." That same night, as she slept, Belle dreamed of her father, ill, alone, calling for her. She woke with a start, heart pounding, as if the dream were a warning. At dawn, she told the beast, who remained silent for a moment. He seemed to battle within himself, then said, in a quiet, resigned voice, "You must go." Belle tried to object, but he only opened the way. "Take this mirror," he said. "It will show you whatever you wish to see. That way, even far away, you will still find me." She held the mirror and felt the sorrow surrounding his gift. It was not merely farewell, but sacrifice. The journey home felt longer than the one before. The horse followed the path almost by instinct, and Belle, wrapped in a silence full of memories, looked around as though she had aged between one night and the next. The trees no longer seemed threatening, only watchful witnesses. She carried the mirror close to her chest, and though the castle was far behind, it still pulsed somewhere within her heart. When she finally saw the small wooden house at the end of the road, emotion tightened her grip on the reins. Her father was alive, but frail. Illness had left him pale and weak. When he saw her, tears carved down his weathered face, and their embrace was the meeting of two worlds, divided by a promise, reunited by love. In the days that followed, Belle devoted herself entirely to her father's care. She brewed teas, tended the fire, and cleaned the house with her usual quiet dedication. Yet now, a shadow lingered in her eyes, an echo of longing she couldn't name. Her sisters, startled by her return, feigned joy. One admired her plain dress, while the other asked about the castle, masking envy beneath curiosity. "You should have stayed there," one said, with a smile that never reached her eyes. Belle simply replied, "I had to come back." But at night, when the house slept, she found herself before the mirror, whispering the beast's name, hoping the glass might return his voice. One night, unable to bear the longing, Belle lifted the mirror and asked to see him. The surface shimmered, and the room darkened. Before her appeared the image of the great hall. Empty, the fire extinguished, the garden withered. The beast lay upon the cold stone floor, motionless, pale under the moonlight streaming through the stained glass. "No," she whispered, touching the glass as if she could reach him. The mirror returned the faint echo of a final breath. The blue rose she had once touched seemed to wither with him, and Belle understood. The spell's time had run out, and the love that had promised to return had arrived too late. Dawn found Belle ready. Without hesitation, she saddled her horse and rode away, leaving behind the home, the comfort, and the sisters' hollow words of consolation. The forest, now familiar, opened before her like a corridor of wind and urgency. Each tree seemed to lean to guide her. Each ray of sunlight breaking through the leaves whispered, "Hurry." The memories of the castle, of silent glances and restrained smiles, beat in rhythm with her heart. She didn't know if she would reach him in time, but she had to try. For true love, she realized, is not measured by the fear of leaving, but by the courage to return. When the gate appeared once more, the castle was wrapped in mist. The garden, once vibrant, lay beneath a veil of gray. The fountains trickled slowly, as if in mourning. Belle rushed through the corridors, calling his name, but only her echo answered. At last, she found the beast beside the lake of blue roses. His eyes were half closed, his body still. She knelt beside him, took his hand, and whispered, "I came back. Please, hear me." No response. The entire castle seemed to hold its breath. Then, with tears streaming down her face, Belle leaned close and spoke, her voice tender, both farewell and beginning. I love you, not for what I see, but for who you are, for the kindness no curse could erase. At that moment, the mirror in her lap gleamed, and a radiant light swept through the castle, as if time itself bowed before the truth spoken aloud. The roses lifted their heads, the wind blew outward from within, and the beast drew a single deep breath. The light that burst forth filled every corner of the castle. The curtains swayed as though stirred by a wind from a place where time itself sleeps. The ground trembled beneath Belle's knees, and the water of the lake shimmered with golden reflections. Slowly, the beast's form began to change. His fur dissolved into streams of light, his claws drew inward, and a human face emerged, as though the curse had surrendered to the power of a word spoken from the depths of a loving heart. Belle stepped back, unsure if she was dreaming, until he opened his eyes, no longer fierce, but calm, filled with a deep recognition. Do not be afraid, he said, and his voice was different now, gentle, like that of a man waking from a long forgetfulness. She did not answer right away. Wonder and emotion intertwined in a silence that spoke for her. The man before her smiled, a new, tender smile, and took her hand, as though learning to feel again. It's me, he said, the one who listened to you read by the fire, the one who learned from you the meaning of every simple gesture. Belle looked at him, and the tears that fell were not of fear, but of relief. Then the spell is broken? She asked. Yes, he replied, because true love does not need to understand form, only to recognize the soul. The castle, now awakened, seemed to celebrate. The fountains gushed with renewed strength. The stained glass windows returned the colors time had forgotten, and the once invisible voices became human again, laughing and giving thanks as if a new dawn had just been born. Belle walked among them, still struggling to believe her eyes, touching the furniture, the mirrors, the golden pillars, as if to confirm that all was real. The prince, for such he was once more, walked beside her, gratitude shining across his face. The castle has always waited for you, he said, but I never knew salvation would come from so pure a heart. In the days that followed, the fields bloomed again, and the kingdom began to speak once more of the castle that had been forgotten. Belle's father was brought there, healed and welcomed with honor. Her sisters, consumed by envy and late repentance, tried to hide their bitterness behind false smiles, but the magic of the house did not forgive disguise. They were turned into statues, condemned to watch in silence the happiness they had once despised. Her brothers, who had done no harm, remained free, and her father, through tears and pride, looked upon the daughter, the one who had once asked for nothing but a rose, now the guardian of a love that could set even stone free. Belle and the prince often walked together through the gardens, and every step seemed to echo a promise. To live not within fairy tales, but in real gestures, where kindness needs no witnesses. Sometimes, at dusk, they sat beside the lake of blue roses, watching the flowers' reflection dance upon the water. Do they still hold wishes? Belle asked one evening. The prince smiled. Yes, but now all of them can come true. The wind stirred gently, scattering petals across the calm surface, as if the universe itself were confirming the truth. And so, where once there had been solitude, a kingdom of peace bloomed. The castle was no longer a prison, but a home. the voices no longer laments, but songs, and the rose, that first one, plucked with love and fear, remained alive, preserved in a crystal vase within the great hall. Belle would look at it each day, remembering where everything began. And each morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows and touched her face, she knew that the most beautiful stories are not the ones that end with happily ever after, but the ones that teach that true love has the power to turn even darkness into light. Time passed, yet within Belle and the prince's castle, time carried no weight. It unfolded in golden mornings and long, unhurried afternoons, as though each day were a gift with no desire to end. Life now moved in a new rhythm, gentle, serene, free from the old echoes of sorrow. The corridors once filled with whispers and shadows now rang with laughter. The scent of flowers mingled with the aroma of fresh bread, and even the bells in the tower seemed to sing. The once-forgotten kingdom had begun to breathe again. Travelers from distant lands came to see the castle reborn from silence, and all were received with warmth. For those who have known loneliness never again allow another soul to feel it. Belle adapted naturally to her new life. Even draped in velvet and crowned in gold, she carried the same serene gaze of the young woman who once swept her father's cottage and found beauty in morning dust. The prince, now free of his curse, ruled with balance and gratitude. He had learned from her that true power lies not in strength, but in gentleness, and that nobility is born of recognizing the worth of small acts. Sometimes, during council meetings where voices rose over riches and borders, he would smile to himself and think, "All of this is small beside a single rose." The nights were calm, the castle shimmered beneath the moonlight, and the garden seemed suspended between dream and waking. There was always music, soft harps and flutes echoing from some unseen corner. Belle often walked barefoot through the hall of columns, her steps blending with the melody. The prince would watch from afar, captivated by how she seemed to converse with the very air. At times, he would join her, and they would dance without rehearsal, as if each movement were a memory of something destiny had written long ago. In a quiet corner of the garden, Belle's father often sat in a wooden chair, watching his daughter with the same calm pride as always. He would say he never imagined kindness could be so powerful as to heal an entire castle. Around him, the blue roses bloomed, and the wind carried the faint chime of tiny bells, the sound of life returning to what it was meant to be. At times, he gazed toward the horizon and silently gave thanks for that single rose that had started it all. It was a reminder that the greatest miracles begin with the simplest gestures, when they are done with love. The sisters, still bound in stone, remained near the lake. Belle never avoided them. Instead, she passed by with eyes full of compassion. She knew that one day, when they learned to love without expecting in return, they too might be freed. The prince, at first, found her tenderness toward them strange, but in time he understood. Forgiveness is the purest form of royalty. Each spring, the statues were adorned with fresh flowers, and the roses that bloomed upon them were always the most beautiful of all. And so, the castle that once housed a beast became the living heart of an entire kingdom. The wind that once carried laments now carried laughter, and the walls that had known fear now echoed with songs. At night, when the last glimmer of sunlight touched the windows, Belle and the prince would walk together to the garden of blue roses. She would touch a petal and smile, and he, without words, would understand that their love had no end. For the truest enchantment is not the spell that binds, but the feeling that sets one free. Time passed like a breeze that cannot be measured, only felt. And in Belle's castle, the days became stories told in a quiet voice, as if each dawn were a living memory of what love can transform. The garden, now vast as the horizon, bloomed without end. Blue, gold, and red roses formed patterns that could only be seen from above, as if the wind itself wished to join the art. Belle walked among the flowers, brushing them with her fingertips, and each falling petal seemed to whisper the same secret. True love is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new soul. At times, the prince watched her from afar, still captivated by the serenity she carried. There was something in her way of being that reminded him of all she had taught him. That beauty is not brilliance but essence, that courage is not shouting but staying, and that happiness is not a place but the quiet gesture of one who chooses to remain. And so he lived, not as a man saved by a miracle, but as one who had learned to be human again. Between them, love was no longer a promise. It was presence, a mature, unhurried love, woven from small gestures and glances that needed no words. Belle liked to sit by the lake at dusk, when the sky turned pink and gold. She said it was the hour when the world most resembled the heart, half light, half shadow. Sometimes she would tell the children from the nearby village the old stories, leaving out the fear, emphasizing the wonder, and always ending with a lesson. That kindness is the oldest magic in the world, and forgiveness the most powerful of all. The children would laugh, spellbound, and leave carrying with them the echo of that gentle voice. A voice that seemed to stitch dreams into the minds of those who listened. When winter arrived, the castle did not sleep. It simply changed its rhythm. The fireplaces glowed, and the halls filled with golden light. Belle and the prince walked together through the rooms, remembering the past not with sorrow, but with gratitude. On the main wall hung a painting of the old rose, still preserved within its crystal vase. It was a symbol of everything, of loss, of choice, of courage, and of love. Sometimes Belle would look at it and smile, as if she could still hear the echo of that first quiet wish. I only want a rose. And so, the castle that was once a mirror of sorrow became the reflection of life in its purest form. The wind that once carried laments now carried laughter. The silence that once weighed upon the walls had turned into music, and the loneliness that hid behind the windows gave way to the tenderness of a home. Belle and the prince grew old together, yet their love never lost the fragrance of that first rose. It is said that when the final winter came, the castle did not mourn. It bloomed again, cloaked in petals that fell like perfumed snow. And those who pass through those lands today still swear they can sense the faint aroma of roses in the air, mingled with distant laughter. They say that on the clearest nights, one can see, reflected in the lake, the figures of a couple walking hand in hand, as if their love had learned to exist forever. For some stories do not end with the end, only with the promise that beauty will remain alive in those who learn to see beyond appearances. And in every rose that blooms, the memory of Beauty and the Beast is reborn, gentle, eternal, and profoundly human.
you.